Well, good afternoon. You're listening to the new WCEG Media Enterprises on WCEGTalkRadio.com. Click your live stream tab or watch us live on your smart TV, YouTube at WCEG Network. I'm Celeste Giordano with CelesteGiordano.com, your show host, Global Legacy and Wealth Building for the next hour. We're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on X, and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. We're also now on LinkedIn, Fanbase, and Blue Sky. And last but not least, our disclaimer. The topics and opinions are those of the show host and guest and not WCEG Media Enterprises. Thank you for your continued support. And good afternoon, Brooke. How are you today?
Good afternoon. Doing well. How about you?
I am doing wonderful, and you are looking fabulous today.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. And I understand today was our advocacy day down at the Georgia Capitol, and you've been just a busy person since way before the sun come up today, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we had a lot of fun down there today.
Well, that's good. You had a lot of people there today?
We did. We had a packed house. We meet over at Central Presbyterian Church and then walk across the street to the Capitol for a photo and give everyone letters to take to their representatives.
Very good. Well, that is a fabulous event, and you have been, Street Grace has been doing that now for how many years is this, Brooke?
I believe this was our 16th.
16th year. And I think the first time that Women of Community Impact in our group went there was in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. And we did several years after that. And we need to get the calendar dates out for next year where we bring a group of people down there next year. So we would love to do that. Well, we are just honored and privileged to have you on our show here again, usually every year in February because it's Advocacy Day, that we always bring Street Grace to our show here at WCEG Media Enterprises. And I just want to thank Penny Rogers and the board for the opportunity for us to have this opportunity and this platform to get this message out to our audience and our listeners. And just want to thank you and the whole Street Grace community for everything that you do in our community, on anti-trafficking and things of that nature. So before I get started, Brooke, what I'd like to do is for our listeners, I'd like to read your bio. And Brooke Ruffin, she's Vice President, Executive Director of Georgia, serves as Vice President, Executive Director of Georgia at Street Grace, and has been a member of the team since 2018, assisting with the expansion from 1 to 5 markets. A survivor of childhood sexual abuse herself, she is dedicated to removing the stigma and educating children on how they can protect themselves from exploitation. In her role as Vice President, Executive Director of Georgia, Ruffin is on the leadership team for Transaction Intercept Initiative at Street Grace, a first of its kind investigator, I'm having a hard time today, investigatory platform that removes the costly, cumbersome, and time-consuming process of human trafficking operations for law enforcement. Through managing the national expansion of this platform, Ruffin is responsible for demos, onboarding, and the management of a team of software engineers from around the globe through a partnership with Microsoft Hack for Good program. Throughout her career, she has remained a strong advocate and volunteer for sexual abuse survivors and developed a dance class focused on reestablishing survivors' emotional connection for their physical bodies. Ruffin has been featured on numerous news outlets, youth conferences, and has advocated for legislation to Congress at a national anti-trafficking in person, ATIP roundtable in DC. That's amazing, Brooke. Brooke Ruffin graduated magna cum laude from the University of Florida and has a background in advocacy and performance. She has previously served as operation manager and director of outreach with the organization, contributing to the development of training, content, awareness campaigns, and community engagement initiatives. And a little bit about Street Grace. is a faith-based organization that utilizes evidence-based demand reduction strategies to eradicate the commercial sexual exploitation of children through prevention, protection, policy, and pursuit. CSEC is sexually activity with a child in exchange for something of value given to the child on a third person. My goodness, Brooke, I remember the very first time Bob Rogers introduced you at the Women and Community Impacts monthly meeting and welcoming you on board to Street Grace. And I didn't realize, but that was in 2018, and you came and spoke at one of our lunches. And my goodness, this is our 8th year that I have known you, and especially I've known 10 years with Street Grace. So what a wild ride it's been, hasn't it?
It certainly has. It certainly has. I'm grateful y'all are still on board and still supporting the work.
Absolutely. And so I know today was Advocacy Day down at the Georgia Capitol, and you shared a little bit when we opened about the amount of people we had there and things of that nature. Is there anything that you would like to share before we get started about Advocacy Day today?
Definitely. It's an opportunity for the community to come down and hear directly from representatives and senators on the legislation that is currently up to support anti-human trafficking efforts. We were supporting felony pandering. So trafficking exists because there is a strong consumer base of buyers willing to purchase and exploit victims, and we need higher penalties, and so that can reduce the related criminal activity. So we are advocating for that every year. We had the Safe Crime Reporting Act, SCR, which is envisioning a world where the victimized and vulnerable are able to report crime without fear of retaliation. So it prohibits a person for prostitution if the sole basis for that arrest are admissions made by that person while reporting a crime. So they can't be apprehended while reporting. We have the Gracie Act, which is a national piece of legislation which I believe about 13 states have signed on for 2026 to prioritize this. And it would require DFACs to operate under best practices and provide children with the best care, updating the interview protocols to require mandatory audio and video recordings. So a lot of times children experience being re-traumatized while telling their stories, and sometimes the stories change from each telling of the story, or they're pressured in between times and they'll redact things. So there's just a lot of inaccuracies there. So this is going to aid stronger prosecutions and reduce the trauma of repeat interviews. And then the survivor justice opportunity, where human trafficking survivors can often take years to be at a place where they can advocate for themselves. And then at that point, it's too late to bring lawsuit. For my abuser, I was too late in the state of Florida to bring anything forward. So the state of Georgia should open a window for those who have missed the deadline to bring civil suits to seek justice as well.
Absolutely. How important is it, Brooke, for people to take part in Advocacy Day and coming down, what you guys do every year? And you and I were talking earlier how you give them a form that they can take to their representative and everything. How important is that to be involved and to do that?
Very important. The more civilians we have and the more people we have at these events, the more representatives and elected officials are going to show up. And the more they are going to know to prioritize this. So even if you are just playing off of people wanting to be reelected, let's do it. Let's get this to be a priority for them. And because there's a lot of noise in society. And so to keep our children at the front of mind and first priority, it takes a lot of work. So coming out and going through the trouble of getting downtown and parking and showing up to advocate for this cause. And then, like you said, we have letters that people can take directly to their representatives over at the Capitol means the world, because the people who are serving us in this capacity, they are aware how much work it takes to come down there. They know that your heart is in for that cause and that it's a deep priority for you, and that they want to see their leaders take action on this issue as well.
Absolutely. And I remember the first time that I participated in Advocacy Day. And, first of all, where you reconvene and the education and the knowledge and the things that you talk to people about before they go over there, is priceless. And then to get the opportunity to go over there, that was the first time I've ever been in the Georgia State Capitol building, was when I went
Really?
in 2016. And then I meet numerous representatives in the communities throughout Gwinnett County and Hall and Forsyth County and things of this nature through networking and through the chamber and things of this nature. But to actually get to go and, some of our representatives, one of our representatives locally here in Gwinnett County that I personally knew, took me into, it was in session down there, and took me in there, and I got to meet the I forget the gentleman that was the head person, and got my picture taken there with them. And he just really took a lot of time with our group and talked to us and appreciated us coming down there, and just just showed us how important it was to him, because it was important to us. And so if you've never participated in anything like this, for our audience and listeners, I highly encourage you, to reach out to Street Grace for next year. It's always in February, right?
Yes.
And participate in this, and especially, for those that are interested in making a difference in your community. As Brooke said, you have to speak up. You have to let your legislators, people, know what's important to you. And so that's important. So I skipped my very first question for you, Brooke, and that was, could you provide a brief explanation of what Street Grace does in the anti-trafficking space?
Yes, so we are a demand-centric organization. So we have our initiatives streamlined through four pillars, which you briefly mentioned after the bio, which, when you're sitting here listening to it, sounds very long. But that prevention pillar, we are educating the public through keeping kids safe in the digital age trainings and youth trainings. We also have our Youth Leadership Academy, which is based off the notion that a protected child is a confident child. We can give them stats all day, but really we need to prepare them to stand up against these normalized things in our society that create demand contributing behaviors. We have our protection pillar, where we operate a hotline and a direct services program to exploited youth and adults. That's in Georgia and Tennessee. And so through a 12 to 15-month or 18-month, I'm sorry, period, we walk through life with them and get them connected to the services, whether that may be counseling services, emergency funds, new housing situations. We've had to relocate an exploited individual across state lines to get them away from their abuser, that had been producing child pornography of them since they were a toddler. And they have to rebuild so many things that we take for granted, even feeling safe to take a shower or going to school, navigating applying to college once they get to that point. So, walking through life with them and assisting their first steps in their ability to thrive after exploitation. We have policy, which is where Advocacy Day that we were speaking of lands, and that's where we develop legislation that harshens the punishments for traffickers and buyers, but also aids survivors' ability to thrive after exploitation as well. Then we have Pursuit, which is pursuit of the buyer. As a demand centric organization, utilizing technology to aid law enforcement efforts to apprehend buyers and disrupt demand. So, we developed a law enforcement platform called Transaction Intercept alongside in kind partners like BBDO Advertising and Microsoft's Hack for Good program, which is essentially their philanthropic arm. Once a year, they'll have a competition called the hackathon, and they allow their software engineers to dedicate their time to a philanthropic effort of their choosing. So this has been the longest standing project through that philanthropic arm. And then several engineers stay on year round to continue developing that platform.
Absolutely. Now, Street Grace, they are here in Atlanta. They're in, is it Cleveland, Tennessee?
Chattanooga,
Chattanooga, excuse me, Chattanooga. And we're in Texas as well.
Houston, yeah.
Houston and any place else?
We have services in Phoenix, Arizona, and then the Miami-Dade area.
Miami-Dade area. All right. And so can you explain how transaction intercept aids law enforcement?
Yes, transaction intercept saves law enforcement time by automating the conversations that they're having with buyers. So when they post these decoy ads online, they can go in and put in the phone number generated by transaction intercept, and then the buyers are going to reach out to that number and be speaking to a bot that is built on that is not built on any publicly available language model. It's built on a custom built hybrid bot that is scripted by law enforcement and survivors of exploitation. And so the bots will speak, and they're scripted in a way to gather the intel that law enforcement needs and guide the conversation so that you have everything you need to make that arrest. And then law enforcement can take over that conversation and set a location and make an arrest. They can export the conversation. And then some are using it as deterrence as well. So you can send a deterrence message. So the whole conversation goes on. You've wasted that buyer's time. You have everything on them to put in their file. But then a message goes out that says your number's been registered as somebody trying to purchase sex with a minor and is available to law enforcement. So there's also a wonderful scare tactic to it, even if it's not being used during apprehension ops.
So with the transaction intercept, and the Gracie are those are two separate things?
Yes, Gracie is essentially a previous version of transaction intercept.
Okay, that's what I thought when I was getting a little confused here. So tell our audience listeners about Gracie as well, please.
What I just spoke about is probably considered transaction intercept 3.0. It started as a manually run operation here in the Atlanta, Georgia area, where we would go to affluent areas of town and post an ad and live answer the calls, or back then it was calls instead of texts from buyers to prove the instance of demand in certain areas. So that's really back when we had to tell people that this is an issue in your area and it wasn't in the news as much. So we wanted to maximize on those efforts and create something scalable for law enforcement, because what we were noticing is that people didn't were not aware the adversities law enforcement's up against when it comes to funding. So getting $10 approved seemed to be the same process as getting $50 approved. And not to mention the bureaucratic process that goes into the approval of such things. So how can we step in and aid our law enforcement partners and save them time so they're not having to chat with these guys, which is not an enjoyable experience. So we went with our in-kind partners over at BBDO, and they built a chatbot that could speak to over 100 individuals at once, and it was amazing. But only one law enforcement entity could use it at once, which was pretty frustrating. And so then we were able to connect with Microsoft's Hack for Good program and expanded it into what we have now, which is the TI
TI.
3.0. So Gracie was the bot created with BBDO.
I got you. And if I don't know, here in metropolitan Atlanta at the time, several years ago, probably one of the highest areas for that was in the Johns Creek area, was it not?
Yes, any affluent area. I think a lot of people had the misconception that it was by the airport or that it was a downtown issue, and back when it was a street crime potentially. But there was this map that used to exist of the Atlanta area that showed only 9% was coming from the airport. It's really, north of the perimeter where the money is, and people are able to hide these purchases from their families.
From their families. Absolutely. Also, Street Grace also offers some education and training for people, correct? Do you still offer the
That
education
prevention
and training?
pillar.
Can
Mhm.
you share a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so we have a CSEC 101 training, which is commercial sexual exploitation of children 101, basically an intro to human trafficking. We have a recognize, report, and respond training, which is for someone who may know about the instance of human trafficking and know what it looks like, but how do I get involved? So how does a person who has now been educated, how can they get involved in the fight? We have that Keeping Kids Safe in the Digital Age training available. And then we do a lot of business specific training. So, for instance, we'll be called to come and train medical professionals. We've trained dentists' offices. Everybody has a unique opportunity to get involved in this fight. So we keep our trainings very flexible and customizable so that we can kind of come in and develop your plan of reporting with you and cater the training to your line of business.
So is this training that you offer, Brooke, is it something that people pay to get this training, or is it free of charge that people could get involved and learn this training, or groups or churches, or how is that?
It's free. Yes, we're going around town all the time. And so whether it's a Bible study group on a Wednesday night, speaking during a church service on a Sunday, or
Right?
coming in and training your staff during a lunch hour, we're flexible and available.
Now, do you go to them, or do you have some of the training where they come to you to your corporate headquarters?
We do have an office here in the Atlanta area. It's on the campus of Victory Church off of Jimmy Carter.
Mhm.
So we do have a training room. Space is limited, so most of the time I'm leaving and going to the offices of folks. And with so many people working virtually, a lot of them are virtual. But we love to be in person whenever we can.
And for our audience and listeners, and then I'll go on to the next question. What is the benefit or why somebody should want to get this training?
I would say we can arm ourselves with the knowledge needed to prevent exploitation in our own families. There's a lot of prevention tools that you can use for protecting your family from this type of exploitation. And,
Right?
and there's also a duty for all of us out in society. We were training the volunteers for the Super Bowl many years ago now. And we had one person that had attended a training and the and I forget where the previous Super Bowl had been, maybe Kentucky or something, was in a hotel, saw a gentleman with two teen girls, and one was not properly dressed for the weather. Of course, it's Super Bowl time, January. Um, and so she saw enough red flags to be worried. So she got off on the same floor as them, did not interact, did not put herself or them in danger, simply acted like she was on a phone call and to see what room that they went in and kept on walking. And then went down to the lobby and called the hotline. And then four teens were rescued out of that room that day. So we
Wow.
all have a responsibility. We're all out in our society. And if we simply know not only what are we looking for, but what am I going to do? Have I prepared myself to be in somewhat emotional distress if you're seeing that situation to know what to do next? Do I have that hotline saved? And do I have I made the plan for myself of how comfortable I'm going to be making that report?
Absolutely. I mean, these are things many, many years ago that you didn't really talk about or you didn't have a lot of knowledge about, but today it's more prevalent and you see it and you hear it, but people don't know what to do. You don't know what you don't know. And
Yeah,
that's what I love about Street Grace is the education and knowledge and how you advocate for these people. And I just think it's important. I attended a couple of your training groups, and I just think it's a great thing to be able to have this service, especially when you get to be like my age where you're volunteering and giving back more. That's just something else that you can put in your arsenal, whether it's with your church group or it's your community, to get this education and knowledge because it's all around. It doesn't happen just in bad areas or anything like that. You see it, everywhere, right?
certainly. And we actually have, we went back and revamped our CSEC training. So we'll be releasing the new one February 24th online. So I'll send you that information in case anybody would like to attend that webinar. And we'll be leading it with National Survivor Leader Rebecca Bender as well.
Absolutely. And for our audience and listeners, because we're about at the bottom of the hour right here, Brooke, just for our audience and listeners, tell them the information about Street Grace website, how they can get a hold of you, how they can learn more, if you could, for our audience and listeners, please.
Certainly. My email is brooke@streetgrace.org. So very simple. Our website is streetgrace.org, and all of our socials are at Street Grace. So follow us on there. We're sharing opportunities to get involved with legislation. It's a very busy legislative session, and are here for any of your training needs as well.
Absolutely. And do you all have a gala coming up anytime this year?
It will be in November. Uh,
November.
we are getting started on planning on that. We'll be hosting our first demand summit in DC this summer, and hosting our first golf tournament in August as well. So we've got a couple new events this year,
Yes.
and kind of growing our presence up in DC on the legislative side as well.
So tell me a little bit more about the demand in Washington, D.C. What is that, the summit?
The summit, that's going to be bringing organizations that are focused on demand together to talk about national trends, to bring leaders into the room in a very convenient space in DC, so that we can get people focused on demand centric efforts and getting law enforcement the support that they need to fully run demand centric operations as well.
Okay, very good. I appreciate that. So, what has changed in the space of human trafficking in the last decade?
I would say the rate at which somebody is exploited, and the confusion over what was a choice and what was exploitation. So you have a society that is telling our teens that OnlyFans is a career path and that a streamer or influencer is a career path. And then more money comes to those who post more risque things. And so it's being put forth as a business plan, and apps are serving as the trafficker, connecting the consumer straight with the product, essentially. Um, so that has resulted in a lot less people coming forward as being victimized, and kind of confusion over what trafficking looks like because it has changed so much. Um, and then when I say the rate of exploitation, when I first got started in the anti-trafficking movement, we would talk about how it took 4 to 6 months to really build a relationship with somebody you were looking to victimize. And they would have to meet up in person or get them to skip school to go to the mall or something like that. And then now you have people from all over the world texting, and it's normalized for teens to sext within the first week of a relationship. So it's expected for them to send those photos, and we're seeing sextortion cases that result in a suicide of a teen within 24 hours, because that photo is sent and then it's okay, I'm about to send it to your whole family. I need this amount of money. They've gone on your socials, they've found your family on there, so you know that they know what profiles to send it to. So the whole process has just expedited.
Absolutely. And and every year we talk about this in February, Brooke, and it's something that I like to get out there to our audience and listeners. And what can you say to the parents that have these teens and monitoring their phones and things of this nature? You know, give them some education about this, because some of them, oh, my child wouldn't do that. I don't have to worry about this, and you do.
You do, and it's a very difficult subject matter to bring up. So I think a lot of parents just don't want to ruin their kids' innocence, or they don't want to be the bad guy. But essentially, that phone is your property. If child pornography and child sexual abuse material is being produced on said phone and being distributed, it is technically yours. So there is a level of responsibility we have within the technology that's within our household, that we have to just step up and get past the uncomfortable pieces for. We need to make it table conversation, and to arm your children with the knowledge that people are out there looking to exploit them. If you know the most common searches on pornography, you're going to be more prepared with whatever you find on your kid's tablet, inevitably, and you're going to be prepared of how to properly steward that, so that we're not instilling shame around somebody's sexual behaviors at such a young age that that could become dangerous because they begin hiding things. They begin to going to the internet for their education. They begin going in search of what was forbidden. So it's very important to remove shame from all of these conversations that we're having with our children as soon as possible.
Absolutely. And, and I just don't think parents really realize, those phones given to these minors, like you say, you're responsible, those phones. You're the adult in the matter. That phone is registered to you. It's not registered to that child.
Mhm.
And whatever goes on there, you can be held accountable for, and it's just like this situation, that we've had these horrible things with school shootings and things of these natures, that parents are responsible for these minors with these guns. Well, the same thing with these phones, and parents seem to think, well, not my child, not my child. And and then your child is doing things that they shouldn't be doing, and you don't, like you say, you don't want to be the bad guy, but you should inspect what you expect. I do think that parents should look at their children's phones occasionally, or they have these things where you can see what their children are doing. If you have a problem child, where what they're texting or saying or this or that. But there comes a time that you've got to protect yourself, your family, and that child, and they have to know what's right and what's wrong. And if they're never taught right and wrong, and something happens, shame on you for not doing that. It starts with you first, right?
Mhm. Yep. And we all have to get to a place of healing with our own past, our own potentially demand contributing behaviors that we didn't know we were partaking in, so that we can be honest with our children, because you can't have these table conversations and you can't have the relationship that you're going to need to for them to come to you instead of the internet without you showing a bunch of vulnerability up front.
Well, and I remember many years ago, Brooke, and we won't stay on this long, but children, they didn't get phones till they were a little bit older, this or that. But these kids are getting phones younger and younger and younger. And these kids have tablets, as elementary, very young. A lot of them are babysitters at home for these kids, these tablets. And there's just got to be a way that they know that you're monitoring, or they know that you're going to check it, and that's okay. And that they understand that, because I just I guess I could say I've heard horror stories of parents that had children, whether it was in bullying or inappropriate pictures or something like that has happened, and people always say, not mine, not mine.
Mm.
And then they want to know what happened.
Yeah.
Happened is you didn't set the boundaries. You didn't let them know you cared. You just put it out there. So
Mhm.
if you're going to give them the phones and they're going to be minors, you need to take the responsibility to let them know that it comes with responsibility and it will be monitored, in my opinion.
Definitely. And there are great social media contracts that, if you're at the beginning of the journey with your child, you can establish.
Yes.
We always are recommending a living room charging station, which, the parents don't even want to do because they want to scroll at night. But traffickers know what hours to target your child. They know what hours they probably are not being supervised online. They know to go to the gaming systems because we allow those in the
Yes.
bedroom because they're big and annoying and ugly, so they know all of these things, and they're being very strategic about when and where they reach out.
Absolutely. And and at nighttime, these children are going to bed with their phones. They're not getting the proper sleep they need to go to school the next day. And like you said, predators know that those kids have those phones late at night,
Mhm.
and they're, whether they're chatting with one of their schoolmates or whatever it is, they're just in a place that they shouldn't be doing that. They should be sleeping. They need their rest for school. That's just me. I'm sorry. So, what is the largest myth you would like to dispel?
Hmm. I Probably it's still the kidnapping. You see a lot of things shared on social media about, okay, don't pick up a dollar that's folded in half at a gas station, or if there's a card on your windshield, don't go into the car. They're going to put white powder and you're going to pass out. There's all of these very dramatic things being shared on Facebook and Instagram to very almost gullible audiences because they're just preying off the fear of
Right.
protecting their family. Uh, when most often it's going to be somebody that you know that's going to abuse your child. It's going to be a family member, a coach, a neighbor. So we are not setting the proper boundaries within our own families, and we're so concerned about, um, no kidnappings and online exploitation, and all of these things are very important. But I don't think that people are setting boundaries within their own extended family or at reunions or during holidays and things like that. So we have to be more honest with ourselves on where the demand is, and that nobody thinks it's going to be that their family. Nobody thinks it's going to be that uncle. And so you have to set those boundaries and stick by them.
Absolutely, and two things that you said that are really important. One of the greatest things that I read all the time, uh, they have these apps, next door apps, what's happening in your community and things of this nature. But the malls, where I would never want to drop my kid off at the mall and let them walk around. I mean, a long time ago, it maybe wasn't a bad thing, but today, you just too many people are out there. The predators, Walmart, all these places, they're following people around, are they not?
Yes, I would say most of that happens online. There's just no reason why somebody needs to put themselves at risk and do something in an area where they know that security cameras are that they couldn't do within the safety of their own home. So as far as recruiting, I would say we can probably relax more at Walmart, but when you are scrolling to be on edge, because traffickers don't have to put themselves at risk anymore. They can just sit on the couch and find somebody.
Right, exactly. And and like you said, also, at home, coaches, you know, schools and things of this nature, you used to, be able to, back I'm dating myself. I'm gonna be 70 in March and I'm proud of it, but back in the day, your teachers, your policemen and your church people and things of this nature, those were all safe places and good quality people. And we still have a lot of good quality people in those areas, but we still have people that are not good, right?
Yes, and I think our brains have been affected by so many more things than they used to. Pornography used to be something that was hidden underneath your dad's mattress in a magazine, not available to you 24/7 on your mobile device and shared around the table when you're a fifth grader because people are laughing at it. So our brains are getting addicted to immediate gratification very early on, which the same material will not yield the same result for
Right.
years on end. So you're going to go to more and more, risque, for lack of a better word, content. Um, and then nefarious towards the end. So nobody wakes up on a Tuesday wanting to harm a child. Either they've been abused and that is what they were taught that sex was, or they have had an addiction for an extended period of time and their sexual preferences deviated from a healthy sexual relationship.
Well, and also on your phones and tablets and computers. I mean, you don't even have to go looking for it. I mean, the ads just pop up to people, and I mean, and you don't even have to be scrolling in the wrong places that stuff can just, pop up somewhere. So, anyways, who is at risk for sexual exploitation? I think we've talked about this, but let's talk a little more.
Yeah, a lot of people ask, why are youth at risk? And it's because they are dependent on others for their primary needs. So yes, we can talk about their frontal lobes not being fully developed. We can talk about them needing attention or needing outside validation, but they that discrepancy in power is evident wherever they are. They're not in charge at home. They're not in charge at school. Their friend groups are the only place where they're having that real sense of identity that they are themselves building. So all of it is based off reputation. And so they're very vulnerable. So if somebody comes in and defends them against an online bully, they're gonna trust that person. If somebody comes in and tells them that they're beautiful and it's the first time that a boy has called her beautiful, she's going to lean into that. So just the lack of life experience and being dependent on others for their primary needs. So if they're in an abusive household and then their older boyfriend that's 19 offers, oh, well, you can come and live with me. You don't have to live with your stepdad, but we have to make these videos every month to pay the rent. She's going to see that as a step up. So just being so dependent on others in every aspect of your life puts them at much higher risk for exploitation.
Well, yeah, one thing, Brooke, is that to me, education is king. And I think families, because I grew up where predominantly you had a mother and a father and they lived together, it was, the divorce was very few and far between. We live in a society today, we still have, mothers and dads are married, good families and things of this nature, but we also have a lot of single parents. My brother is a single parent raising a teenage daughter. Okay. And the thing of it is that I think that we have to take time and sit down and have that conversation. When I was growing up, there were, you learned about the birds, the bees, and things of this nature. Your parents, your mom or your dad, they had a conversation with you about that. And I don't think a lot of families are having conversations about that. Like if they give you a phone or anything, or how these things happen, they just think it's not going to happen to me, and they never ever ever have that conversation with them. I mean, is that correct, or do you hear that?
Tendency or a false belief that kids now are not as innocent as they used to be because of their access to technology, and that they're less dependent on their parents for that type of education because it's everywhere and they're hearing about it at schools. And that's what we hear in the news, is that our kids are exposed to this and this and this and this. Um, and that somehow takes the responsibility away from the parent. I think there's also, you know, it's a two income household world. And that used to not be the case. And so more and more parents are dependent on technology or dependent on relatives or outside parties to care for their children than in many years.
Right.
So that's a powerful aspect at play, is that parents are simply overwhelmed and don't know how to have those difficult conversations. And they're
Sure.
being told that their children aren't as innocent. And when I'm with youth and they're asking these questions, it is so unbelievably clear how naive and innocent they still are. So yes, they are being exposed to this content, and yes, they may have very short attention spans because they've been trained to scroll or what have you. But as far as interpersonal relationships and the respect that they deserve in a relationship and everything that it could protect a child from allowing these manipulative behaviors into their life, they are still so naive too. So I would just stress that our kids are still kids and they still really need us.
Absolutely. Um, and I appreciate you sharing that. Do you all offer any training for parents on how to educate their children on anything like this, or no? I know you know what to look for, but is there a program that you teach in churches or organizations or anything that are geared strictly for the parents on raising their children with this world of human trafficking?
It would be that keeping kids safe in the digital age training. So we have that available online. We also have a handbook that has a lived experience expert's point of view kind of woven throughout it. That has things as simple as conversation starters and ways to bring it up in the carpool lane and things like that. So we have a lot of resources available to both parents and grandparents because, like I mentioned, with this two income household economy, a lot of grandparents are taking care of grandchildren, and
Most
because
definitely.
daycare is so expensive. So it's important for the grandparents to be on it when it comes to online education as well.
Well, and that was a great point because I was having a conversation with somebody today and we were talking about grandparents and when they're ready to retire and this or that, and there are a lot of grandparents that are help raising their grandchildren, whether they're keeping them after school or they're keeping them on the weekends because parents are working or whatever it is. And I also, from what I understand from some of the people that I know that are helping raise their grandchildren and stuff, their children, maybe their morals and values, I don't know if that's the right word I should be using, morals and values, but their perspective of certain things, whether it come to human trafficking or religion or anything, is not the same as the grandparents. And they're not allowed to do certain things, but yeah, you got to watch your grandchild.
Right.
You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's a very fine line. And we've even spoken about having a specific training for grandparents because a lot of feedback, we'll get a lot of them attending these Keeping Kids Safe in the Digital Age. And they're like, okay, how do I get my kids to listen to me? Because I see my grandkids on the laptops and sorry, on the iPads and everything all the time, and they're scrolling and they're playing these games, but my kids are so busy. How do I get them to sit still and listen to me? So there are definitely ways that we can help with developing that communication pipeline and how to have effective communications with family members about very difficult subject matters.
Well, I think that would be a great program to offer because today, when I was having this conversation, I said, probably in the last week to 10 days, I've spoken to 5 friends that at some point or another throughout the week, they have their grandchildren 24, 48 hours at a time, because somebody's working or they're helping out or whatever it is. And I just think it would be a great opportunity to do that. And it would be a great opportunity if you could tie it in where somewhere in that training or whatever that they could bring their, it's not their child, it's their adult child, where they could be on the same page because they have different values or they see things differently than we do. And yes, we all got to give and take a little. And everybody's afraid, well, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to jeopardize not being able to see my grandchild, but yet they know what's happening is not right. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Or in their opinion, it's not right. So I think it would be a great program for you guys to offer for grandparents.
Yeah, I'll definitely get with the team on that because we're hearing it a lot. So it's obviously a great need.
So I have 2 questions. What is the one policy initiative that you would like to see our state adopt?
Ooh, buying being a felony on the first offense. Easy.
Absolutely. So, but didn't a couple of years ago, didn't we get something that went a little bit in that favor, Brooke, on the buying
I
or something about a first
you're
offense or
thinking about
something?
when they raised the age for it to be counted as a minor. And so I believe they raised that from 16 to 18. So
Okay. That what may have been
buying of a minor is a felony, but we want buying of anyone on the first offense to be a
as a
felony.
felony. Absolutely, absolutely. And what can our listeners do to take action starting today?
Um, I would say go ahead and follow us on social media. I'll send you this webinar that we're going to be doing and just start with a bit of education. And if you can think of a group in your life that you want trained or that needs this training, just to share that contact and we'll get in contact with them. If you know law enforcement, we've got a free tool for them. So just don't discount the connections that you have in your own circles because all of us have something to offer. It's just taking that take action step.
Absolutely. So, for our audience and listeners, if they go to www.streetgrace.org, is there a drop down menu for registering for any education or training? Brooke, can you sort of walk our audience through? We have about 9 minutes.
Yes, if you just you go and you click on events, and then you'll be able to see all of our upcoming training opportunities there.
All right. So, and then also the summer where you're going to DC for the demand, is that for anybody to be a part of that, or how does that work?
That's going to be for leaders in the space and organizations, but as soon as we've got the structure in it up on the site, we will make that available. We're also having a men's breakfast in Dallas, Texas, I believe March 6th. So that's really providing men the opportunity to get involved in the anti-trafficking space, and to welcome them in, from being the essentially the cause of the problem to one of the solutions of the problem. So welcoming them into the fight, and how to use lived experience, and how to use past sexual addictions and things of that nature to educate and to fight against this issue, to not hide it or have shame surrounding it, because our society has really driven men to this point. So it's time that they're welcomed back into the fight against it.
One thing I want to say about the men, Brooke, and I think I say this every year, the Women in Community Impact, this is going to be our 10th year at Home of Hope. We do a Mother's Day dinner for the women and children at Home of Hope. And these are good women and children, and they're not bad people. They most of them have left abusive relationships and things of this nature. And I remember that one of the very first times that we did this dinner, we invite our spouses to come, and we had the men serve the food to the women.
Mhm.
And I'll never forget one of the mothers saying to me, she said, "You just don't know what it means to me to have a nice man like this serve food and cater to us, because they're so used to being abused and things of this nature." So for men to be able to get involved in something like this is a huge thing.
Definitely, definitely. And I think so many of them have wanted to get involved for so long, and so many of them have been abused themselves. But if you look like the problem, then you're going to feel less welcome in the room. So it's up to us to find ways that they can be involved. And there's no better way to reduce demand than seeking redemption for the demand. So going and telling people, just because you have done this doesn't mean you have to continue. And you are welcome to be redeemed, and you are welcome to join efforts to fight against this.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that. I also want to make sure on this demand thing in Washington, D.C., please make sure you send me and Women in Community Impact this information. I would love to, at our next board meeting, to talk to them and see about getting involved in that. And do you know what month it's going to be in?
I believe it's the end of July.
End of July? Okay. We definitely appreciate that. And for our audience, if you would just give them your information one more time, and anything else that you'd like to pass on to our audience and listeners, I'm going to let you do our closing comments.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Brooke Ruffin. My email is brooke@streetgrace.org, and you can visit us at streetgrace.org for all of our upcoming events and for a lot of downloadable educational tools for you and your family. Thank you so much, Celeste, for having me. It's a joy to be with you every year. When you said it's been 8 years of us working together, I could not believe it, but I was a very young thing walking into that room, and I'll always remember just the powerful and influential women that you had in there were truly inspiring. So very grateful to be a part of any event that y'all have. We're here for any questions. There is no bad, too awkward, or too not table conversation question for us. That's what we're here for. So reach out for anything you need. And thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's such a privilege and honor to host you here today. And thank you for everything that you and the staff and Street Grace does for our community. For Advocacy Day today, please give Bob Rogers and Kamala and
Faith.
Faith, yes, Faith, that we send our love and appreciation, and we want to be involved this year, and we want like to know what the best way that we can serve Street Grace this year. And it's an honor and privilege to host you again, and look forward to many more, and enjoy your planned time off.
Thank you. Thank you.
My
I
heart loves
appreciate
your
it.
heart. And thank you, Penny Rogers, and our board at WCEG Media Network for this fabulous show here today. Have a blessed day, Brooke, and take care.
Thank you. Have a blessed one.
You
Bye.
too.